Good morning, Internet, and welcome back to Matic Film Society. In today's video, I'm going to show you the ins and outs of how to shoot with this absolute tank of a camera. This is the Nikon F4, and I'm going to be honest, if you are watching this video to try and figure out how to shoot this camera, I'm very surprised because 99% of people that shoot with this camera have probably been shooting for a while and know what they're doing. It's a really well-built, solid, professional film camera, and I absolutely love this thing. It is just an absolute tank. Okay, so let's get right into it. It's pretty simple. Over here, you have your on and off button. You have this red L that says that it's locked or off. And in order to turn it on, you're gonna press this little black button here, and that unlocks the switch, and so now you can rotate this switch. You have different things here. Press that button and rotate it. So that's locked, that means it's off. And then if we rotate it to S, that's a single frame. So every time you press the button, it's only going to shoot a single image. And then if you press it again and go over to CH, this is continuous high. And so now you can press the button and take a whole bunch of frames. Or you can go over here to continuous L, CL, and that's going to take multiple frames, but just slower. Or you have continuous S, which is even slower, just barely eking through. And then the very last button that you have way over here, that is your self timer button. And so you press that and it's going to give you a 10-second timer for when it actually shoots the image. So we're gonna leave this on S right here, just continue it, just single frame. Looking more at the top of this camera and what we have, over here, this is your shutter speed. This rotates this command dial to change your shutter speed, and your shutter speeds go all the way from 8,000 all the way down to 2 seconds, 1 second, 4 seconds, or bulb. And on bulb, you just press the button and it's going to stay open for as long as you have that button open. This red 250 indicates that this is the shutter speed that you would use for a flash sync that mounts right here on your hot shoe. More on this top frame of the camera because there is so much to do on this thing. Over here you have your exposure compensation dial, and so you'll press this little tab in and then rotate that. So if you want to overexpose your film by one stop, you rotate it to the +1 position. If you want to underexpose it by, say, 2 stops, you rotate it to the -2. And if you want to leave it just neutral, normal exposure, leave it at number 1. Over here on the left side of the top of the camera, this is your ISO section. And so right here is where you're going to change your film speed depending on what film you put in it. And this has 2 different versions. So if you press this little button up here, that unlocks your ISO dial, and so you can spin it to choose your ISO. And this goes all the way up to 6400 ISO and all the way down to, let's see, 6 ISO is what it looks like is at the very lowest. But it also has a little red DX if you scroll it even further. And so this camera is DX encoded, meaning when you're shooting film and your film has these little silver and black little blocks on it, this camera can read these and this will automatically set whatever film speed this film says it has. If you have your ISO setting here set to the red DX, that will make it so it automatically chooses the correct ISO for the film. Your aperture is here on the inside of your lens. It's kind of at a tricky spot to see with the camera, but it's a really good spot for your fingers. You can just reach in there and that's what changes your aperture on your lens. So this camera and all Nikons, this takes the FX mount. And so these are really easy lenses to come by. They make a whole bunch of them, but you want to make sure that you find one that has an external aperture ring. You can find some of the newer ones that don't have the external aperture ring, and those ones don't work on this F4 camera because you need to actually physically change the aperture on the camera, and it doesn't have an internal system to change it itself. Another kind of fun thing about this camera is you can take off its little brain right here so that you can see straight through and down the viewfinder of it, which is really fun. It's kind of unique. And what you actually see here when this is on is you'll see some indicator lights right there. And if you see an arrow pointing one way or the other, that means it's not in focus. And if you see a red X, that means it wasn't able to find focus. And if you see a green dot, that means you have correct focus. And so in order to take these lenses off, you come over here to the side of the camera and press this silver button, press that down, and then rotate the other way until the lens pops right off, bam. And then to put it back on, you just line up your little white dot there with the white dot on the camera, get that nice and flush, and then rotate until that clicks. And now she's all ready to go. Loading up film in this thing is super simple. What we're gonna do is first we're gonna turn this camera off, and in order to load film, you're gonna pull up on your return knob here. But there's everything with this camera is locked. And so in order to pull this up, you have to press this little white arrow that spins it, and then that pops it up. And so now you give it a second pop and it releases your film door. So now that your film is open, you're gonna take your film and you're gonna take it so that the knob is down and place that into there, and then lock your return spool back down. And this is a very fast loading system. All you have to do is pull it over to this red mark here and just tuck it right under there, and everything's gonna grab and it's gonna rotate it and get it ready to go. And so with our film in like that, we just need to close our film door, make sure it's nice and tight in there, and then we're going to turn this camera on, and nothing's going to happen. It's not going to do anything. But because it's the first frame of the camera, when you press this shutter button, it'll rotate through about 3 frames and get the film to an open frame ready to shoot. So now it's all set up and ready to go. And you saw every time I shot, this spins. So you take a frame and it spins, and that's indicating that your film is moving through the camera. If you want to shoot with this camera, a lot of the lenses are autofocus lenses, but you can change it to manual focus here. So on the side of your lens, there's this little lever that you see a C, an S, and an M. So on M, that means it's going to be in manual focus. And if you change it to S, that's going to be in single shot focus. So you'll press the shutter button and it will find focus, and then it will stay there even if your subject moves. Or you can change it to continuous, and that way if you lock onto focus and your subject moves forward or backwards, your focus motor is going to try and follow that subject to keep it in focus. This only has a single point of autofocus when you're looking through the viewfinder, and it's dead in the center. So it's not very versatile in terms of where you're setting your focus, but it works pretty well. It's not going to be blazing fast autofocus like you get on some of the new Sonys, obviously, because this thing was made in the 80s and it's very, very old, but it has a pretty dang good autofocus system if you have a quality lens with it. Once you're done shooting with this camera and you've finished through your whole roll of film, it's not going to rotate it back into the canister automatically. What you're going to need to do is that it's kind of like starting up a jet fighter. So you have this R1 lever here, so you're gonna press that in and then rotate that. So now that's been rotated. And then you have R2 on this side. So you're gonna then press this button and then rotate that, and that's going to rotate that all the way over until your film goes back into the roll. It's pretty wild. Maybe they just did it so that you wouldn't accidentally ever rotate it back into the roll, but that's how you get the Nikon F4 all up and ready and good to shoot. Honestly, one of the best film cameras out there. This thing is an absolute tank. It weighs about, 10 pounds, especially when you've got a big lens on it like this, but wow. High quality camera, takes amazing photos. Let me see what you guys make with it.